Welcome to Subject to Change, a sustainability podcast.
Yes.
A pale ale. I'm drinking a Omegang rare Voss.
Ooh, sounds tough.
16 ounces, because that's what the day needs. I was thinking it would be really cool to just talk about the thing that's occupying our brain right now regarding, our work and where we need to be.
I'm on my second beer, if I'm being totally honest.
That's okay. I bought some non-alcoholic beers from Honest Weight Food Co-op, and they're really good. So I have a real beer, and then I have a non-alcoholic beer, so I don't feel as guilty.
What's the name of that movie that's like, I had a no good, very bad day? I had that day. However, for those of you out there, I have this secret desire to be able to do inversions and yoga. And I've been working pretty regularly, actually, with Heather McClellan, who we've interviewed previously.
So what's Moonology?
I can't do yoga without there being a personal element to it, right? Like, it's all about kind of this idea of mind over matter and perseverance and, mind-body connection. And I just don't think that those things exist without you being able to tap into other areas of your life. I think that it starts to ebb and flow. And so some of the book reviews that I'm going to be doing, it's associated with Heather, and actually really Kelly Kinahan told me about this book called Moonology. And it's all about kind of this idea of it's manifesting, but it's manifesting with the idea of doing it in the rhythm of the moon. So the natural processes and cycles. And I've been feeling like I've been missing this connection to the earth. I want to start to follow these natural cycles. So because of this, I've started reading Moonology. I talked to Heather a few months ago, about doing new moon or full moon sessions. I went to a full moon ceremony with her a couple months ago, and I can't tell you why, but I can tell you that the things that I wanted to let go of, the full moon is a time to let go of any heavy weight that's like kind of holding you down. It's like the highest point, right? And it's this time to kind of celebrate and let go of what no longer serves us. And all I can say is that it worked. I went in wanting to let these two very specific things go, and to this day, 2 months later, I really don't feel the need to go back to that place.
To be magnetic.
And so it's been with Heather that I've started to get into this thing called To Be Magnetic, which is it's another form of manifesting, but it was actually through the reading of my Akashic files that she did for me that I came to realize that I have some things, as we all do, that we need to go through and we need to process.
Right.
And we need to let go of. I had a very bad day today. And I'm smiling about this really bad day because it's comical. It's not, the things that happened are not comical. I'm freaking out. I mean, I've basically worked through a majority of my projects. I've intentionally been lightening the load of my workload. As you guys know, I'm self-employed. And I have intentionally, since January, lightened up my workload so that I can work on my house, meaning I need to build a house. I need to find a place to live. I'm currently, living in someone else's home.
Procrastination.
Well, there's procrastination, but then there's this specific form of procrastination. And this very specific form of procrastination is something called like positive procrastination or something along those lines. I read it in a book. I don't remember what it's called.
Where you do all the minutia and you like catalog things and you clean.
You do all of the things. It's counted as work. You're being productive, but you are right. Not being productive on the thing you're supposed to do.
You're not being strategically productive.
I'm not being strategically productive. And so 8 months later, the universe has found me and it has said, no more. So the universe is conspiring, and it's doing the thing that I need, and it's moved me to this place where it's left me with very little else to worry about. So I'm freaking out, but after a really quick cry,
Well, you even made that efficient. You made your crying efficient. Check out Holly Hunter in broadcast news. You're like Holly Hunter in
Oh, I'm not
there's a movie that she was in that she assigned herself 30 seconds a day to cry.
Oh.
She would take the phone off the hook and like turn off all of the things that would distract her, and she'd sit on the bed in whatever hotel she was in, and she would sob irreconcilably for 30 seconds, and then her watch would beep and she would wipe her eyes and put the phone back on the hook and be ready.
Oh gosh, that's hysterical. Okay, so
that
was me today. It was just today. That was just me today.
Okay. And there's the magic dark.
And the magic dark is that super scary place where everything seems to be going entirely wrong. And we are at this place where we're about to make the decision, do we give up or do we move forward?
Wow.
But I'm in a super safe space. I think it's time for me to kind of step into this next phase to like really get it done so that we can move on to this next step and the next big thing.
We are, after all, subject to change. No, that's incredible. And I think I'm wondering if you and I started this project together because we were both entering a phase of our lives that had that kind of that build up to a transition that this podcast is part of, but also maybe having these conversations with people helped us to recognize. A lot of what you're going through is sounding very familiar to me in my moment in time. I think I want to use yoga and inversions. I do headstands all the time, but I don't do handstands. I've always wanted to do free from the wall handstands, and I haven't gotten there. Yeah, wouldn't that be cool?
Yes, I'm only at headstands and crow. That's all.
I can't even do crow. I feel like I'm roadkill more than crow. She's really bad. But anyway, the point is that I think I need to use yoga deliberately to help my sleep patterns, which have been horrible. I haven't been able to sleep. The stress at work is really bad. I'm looking for a transition. But my point is that you talked about how you hold on to insecurities and self-doubt and fear. And I hold on to, I've started to recognize in me that I'm holding on to anger. And I've never been an angry person, but the last 6 months, and you can already see it in my face. Is it inappropriate to say this? I am holding on to so much anger and frustration, and just to the point where it's almost like I'm training myself not to give a shit because that's easier than being angry. And I feel like that's a failure.
Two things.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, go ahead. You go.
No, go. Well, just you mentioned, this idea, this moment in time where you said something about, do you fail or do you move forward? And in my case, my struggle is that what I think I need to do to move forward also represents to me failure, because I've committed to make a change where I am, and I'm unable to make that change and feel like it's my fault. So I'm wrapped up in this guilt and this anger about what I need to do. So I've had great conversations. You're working on your physical and spiritual connection to and in fact, I wanted to tell you, you already look like your muscles are different than they were a month ago. This is amazing. Yep. That's cool. I noticed it.
Thank you.
Is it inappropriate for me to say that? No.
I don't think so.
If I were Cuomo,
I was going to say, I think it's inappropriate if you maybe ran your fingers up and down them or something.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so regenerative practice. And I'm also taking the regenerative practice training, which is an investment of money and time.
That's the super big one, right?
That's the one that's lasting through November, and I'm working with a cohort of people, and it's really potentially wonderful. And it's a great resource because I spent an hour yesterday talking with one of the trainers, Marcus Sheffer, who I know already through project experience. And, you know, he just brought it forward that there is a point. Giving up is not necessarily what I'm doing. It's recognizing that the structure I'm in is not going to change. No. And yes, I still have to work on my skills, but quite likely I'm not the right person in the right time to make the changes that that organization needs. And that's not a failure on my part. It's kind of like leaving an abusive marriage. So should I mean, there's all this stuff wrapped up. Am I being selfish by finding a better place to work? Am I going to be able to find a better place to work? Am I going to go to a smaller pond and be satisfied with that? Or am I going to go to a bigger pond? And what opportunities are, I would rather go to a smaller pond and be more effective than stay where I am. But I would also much rather find a more impactful role. So all of these things are in my head too. I have skills that must be used. We each have one, well, maybe we have more lives on this planet, but the life that I'm aware of right now is this life I have, and I need to do something useful with it and impactful for me and for the planet, and I'm not able to do that right now.
What?
I'm drinking beer, and you're a dear friend of mine, and although we're recording, I'm the one who's going to edit this.
Correct. Okay. Yeah. This is going to be a doozy. Okay.
Value conflicts.
Right now I'm going through a value conflict. Like, yeah. I want to save the world, but I also want to have enough money to live. But like, I would rather save the world and do it for free. But like, then how do I live?
Yeah.
So like, that's my value conflict.
Part of the world. Here's my thing.
Yeah, tell me. Tell us.
My thing. This is the big idea, people. What is incredibly frustrating at this moment in time for me is that sustainability needs to shift to the regenerative practice, the holistic thinking, the understanding that we are working in symbiosis with nature, and we are working in symbiosis with our community. We are working individually in symbiosis with our own health and well-being. And if we can benefit those systems, in turn, we will be benefited. And in turn, we will solve the climate crisis in a way that is livable for many more generations. The problem is that the way to get to that understanding is not a hierarchical command and control approach. It has to be a collaborative, intuitive, iterative, communicative process. And I live and work currently in a world that only understands command and control and hierarchy. World we have created, the world of business that we have created, is based on that hierarchical structure and that top-down, I'm setting a policy and everyone will follow it idea. And it's missing out on the multi-solving, on the emotional intelligence, on the true community building and the support of human individuals and their whole self. It is really tough because the systems that exist, and I'm not blaming anybody in my work, I'm just saying this is what exists, is all about, you know, you're the expert, so you write a list of what needs to be done and tell everyone, get leadership to approve it, and then tell everyone to do it. And that actually undermines the entire focus of what sustainability has to be about going forward. And I'm so incredibly aware of that I can't function in this existing system. So that's what's getting me now, that the universe that exists is built on a core principle that entirely doesn't work with the core principle we must have to do the work we need to do. Does that make any sense to you, Lauren?
It makes 1,000% sense to me. And it is frustrating and it is infuriating. And quite frankly, it's very scary.
It's like we have to encourage people to realize they're part of the world that they live in. What's up with that? Why isn't that something that people know? The language divide. It's like our talk with Bart when he talked about religion. I had a gut reaction. I had to stop myself from being apart from that conversation with Bart because the idea of religion pushed me back. And I think that there are a lot of things. The word sustainability pushes a lot of people back. The word climate pushes a lot of people back. And I think we have to start to talk and listen in a way that pulls people back to the conversation. 2 recognitions.
One of the things that I've been doing lately is recognizing the truth of my situation, right? Like we all have our truth, and we've all done things. I have done things personally that I have not been proud of, especially in retrospect. Something that seems okay in the moment, in retrospect, is good. I was raised with 2 extra sisters, and everybody just did like the best that we could. And I think that we're in a place where people are doing the best that they can do, which right now is realistically probably stunted.
Okay, well, that's fair. Yeah.
Maybe for some people it's stunted. Maybe for other people it's not. Maybe this has been a period of growth for some people and a period of reserve for others. My biggest thing right now, I have 2 things right now. There's been these 2 comments that keep coming up over and over and over again. And the one thing is to meet people where they are. Great
sentence. I need to.
So like meeting people where they are on any given day, that's super important to me right now, to make sure of that. And what was the other thing? And the other thing that I try to do, 2 things can be true. Both things can be true.
Yes. Okay. I tell my husband that all the time. He's a very linear thinker. He's very black, white, if I'm right, then he must be wrong. which is just so bizarre to me.
Yeah. So I think like in every situation, both things can be true.
That's awesome.
And I think that this is kind of something that Melissa O'Mara talked about a bit in her interview too, or her conversation. It's, we're all in different places. We all need a little kindness. We all don't share the same thoughts. That's true. And I think that we all have to be kind, not only to other people, but also to ourselves. I think both things can be true. I don't think you're quitting anything. I think you're going to go on to a more receptive audience where you're going to have the ability to change more minds. You're going to meet people where they are.
That would be wonderful.
Because they're going to be more progressive in their thought process.
I like the meeting people where they are. And a lot of people think that that's a compromise tone. No. And I have come to realize that that's really, I would say, the spark for innovation, because if you can meet people where they are in the respect that you're curious and you're asking them, what helped them to get there? What are their ideas about? What opinions do they have? That's all such great information for building your communication capabilities, for building your own ideas, for informing your own path. I mean, that's actually something that I found from this series of talks, is that just the spark of recognition of a new idea or an entirely different idea that helps me understand my own thought process in a different way. A little bit about grace.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
And I think that when we give people compassion and we give people the room to speak and be understood and to also understand, I really do think that we get to a more progressive place, because honestly, I think a lot of times we're more alike than we think.
Yeah.
What do you see as your springboard?
All right, so you and I have both talked about the fact that we're struggling with the work that we're doing, the position of our own skill set related to the future that we seek either personally or professionally. What's one thing that you feel, you've talked about a couple little things, but big idea that you think will be a springboard to take you to the next thing?
So the thing,
Yeah.
what I'm working towards at this point is what started with a house or two. So for me, when we were originally talking about kind of next steps, was this idea of designing a house with like a tiny home, kind of in-law house beyond.
Yeah, we talked about that with Dave Sadowski quite a bit, especially regarding maybe having food, dealing with food apartheid for the neighborhood, which was really
Correct.
a cool idea. Yeah.
And now it's really kind of turning into more of an entire neighborhood development that really.
Wow.
Working at neighborhood scale.
I believe that it can work. I believe that it should work. And I want it to work. And so what I'm in the process of developing at this point with Chris Straley is this idea that, we can create a neighborhood that is consisting of basically urban infill homes and rehabs and retrofits of existing homes that basically work for not all income levels, but middle to low class.
Yeah.
The goal is to really create like an actual communal space. And we know that people come together over food. We know that people are able to be more comfortable in their lives when their bills are paid and accounted for. And so we believe that to have affordable construction is first and foremost, but we also believe that operational maintenance is a huge, not being afraid to have your power turned off, not to be afraid that you won't have heat or air conditioning as the earth warms.
Or internet at this point in time.
Or
we really
internet.
like the connectivity is like huge.
Right.
This is awesome.
But having things like a lower mortgage to no mortgage, having things like lower no power bills, having access to not only green space that helps, heal the brain and the way that it functions and the body in general, but also having access to things like healthy food on a seasonal time frame. We feel like all of these things are really integral to making neighborhoods actually work. We're looking to do a lot of workforce training as a part of these. And wouldn't it be wonderful to not only build your own house, but then be able to actually live in it afterwards?
The puzzle piece connections.
What I find incredible is that the actual ability to multi-solve or create co-benefits only comes into play when you look at the larger scale project, which is in one respect overwhelming, but in another respect gives you so much opportunity to do things effectively.
Well, like you said before, when we talk about sustainability, it's not linear, it's not pieces and parts. You have to bring the entire picture in. You've got to, it's those puzzle pieces that Allie talked about.
Yeah, that Allie talked about, right? There's one over here and one over here, but they connect because of the whole.
Yes, we have to take it, we have to join it together, and we have to truly understand. And while I don't know the issues. That's the reality. I don't know the issues that people face on a regular basis, but I know that when we sat down and we did the square foot estimate on what is effectively a 750 square foot house, I was floored that they were going to tell me it was going to cost $250,000.
Yeah, that's insane.
People need to have less stress in their lives. People need to not be for. People need to have access to basic human rights, and we're going to find a way to make that happen affordably and in a neighborhood setting.
Applause for
Thank
taking
you.
this on.
I'm taking it on because it's something that I was looking for myself.
Unencumbered.
I want to feel financially free.
Yeah.
I want to feel like I'm not a slave to my house. As one single person, I don't need to be living in this ginormous house. I want a house that's big enough that, you know, when my entire extended family wants to get together for Christmas Eve dinner, people can come to my house. And I need a bedroom. That's all I need.
You're talking about understanding that people don't want to have to be encumbered, and that's what it is, encumbered by debt for their whole life and work only to pay off a debt. They want to be working in something that's joyful and have the freedom to choose that joy as opposed to working to pay off debt. It's a huge revelation. It's something specific to this country, I would say, additionally, that we've put ourselves in a position where debt is more important than anything else right now.
Right.
Change in action.
And I will say a lot of my friends don't understand what I'm trying to do. They keep saying, why aren't you moving to the suburbs? Why are you choosing to live in that neighborhood? That neighborhood's not safe. And I say, I believe that if I get to know my community, I believe that if I become part of the community, that I will be safe.
Yeah. That's excellent. And we do have to try and get Majora Carter on this show, but she always says that you don't have to leave your community to live in a sustainable community. And I think it's the same about safety. You don't have to leave a community to live in a safe community. You have to make it safe through your presence and your connections and your willingness to deal with difficult neighbors and neighbors that aren't like you. And they might not be difficult. They might just be different.
Right.
The value of arts and design.
I'm an adjunct professor at Onondaga Community College.
I'm jealous, actually.
As well as Syracuse University. But
that's awesome.
This particular comment pertains to OCC. What I would like to do is drop a link as part of this. OCC is in the process of phasing out a series of really wonderful programs, architecture and interior design included. Yes. So it's important that we keep this type of very affordable, very attainable, achievable education, solid education in the community college system.
It's crazy because we know we talked about this with TJ Mannix, in fact, that elimination of the arts and lack of respect for the arts and lack of respect for design is like the beginning phase of a move to a controlled, this is extreme, but fascism. Because once you lose respect for the arts, which the arts in any form is intended to express ideas for sharing of those ideas and opens minds, to eliminate the arts in a community college is a detriment to the ability of our future generations to have reasoned thought processes and self-awareness of their own perspective.
Albany Riverfront Collaborative.
I'm going to share a project that I'm working on outside of work. It's really cool. There's an ad hoc group of people working on in Albany to understand and to kind of redesign and revision 787. 787 is a highway between Troy, New York and Albany, New York. And it runs right along the river and cuts off the Hudson River from real access by the community of Albany. In addition, when 787 was created, there were interchanges that cut off the south part of Albany from the center business district and the north warehouse district of Albany. And the south part of Albany tends to be kind of the underrepresented minority population. So there's a real socioeconomic divide and cultural divide that happened because this strange kind of interchange that leads up to the Empire State Plaza cuts the city in two. So that's a really exciting project. We're called the Albany Riverfront Collaborative. The intent is to create an ongoing community-based management of a project that's probably going to take us 50 to 100 years to complete, but we can vision the end goal and make sure that the projects in the interim are on that same path to that end goal.
Planning for 50 to 100 years.
How do you look out 50 to 100 years? Like, how
I know,
do
it's
you know
insane.
what technology is going to be? I mean, are you even planning for cars, or do you just say like we're not going to have cars?
No, that's actually a fantastic question. What I've and I'm going to actually I've really encouraged the group, which is a very really good diverse group, to focus on core principles, and the core principles are things like we want to engage the full community. We recognize that we don't know all the answers today, and another core principle is to reduce carbon in our approaches. So no matter what the technology ends up being, those core principles can still apply. And if we know that our end goal is to kind of heal the community, then the projects will change over time, but the willingness to engage with those projects in light of those core principles will keep us on track, I think. There have been studies about this in the past that have been put on a shelf, and we don't want this to be put on a shelf. We want this to be a living, breathing, continual improvement mentality project that just goes on, that the whole community checks in on every couple of months and says, hey, what's happening next?
Right.
Change is action.
So what is it? What is the Irish curse? May you live in interesting times. Like, look at the fossil fuel industry. How much money ExxonMobil spent denying climate change, when if they had just taken that money and invested it in innovation. Why are we so afraid of change? Okay, this is for people watching, this is an entire 5, 6, 10. I have no idea how many talks.
Psychologist on to talk about why are we so afraid of change?
Why are we so afraid of change? And viewers, tell us, why are you afraid of change? What makes it so hard?
Yeah,
I think I need to know that.
I'm going to find someone to come talk to us about this.
And into our wrap up.
Yeah, I hope you feel better.
You know what I do? I think there are challenges ahead, but I'm a change agent, so I shouldn't be afraid of change, right?
You know what? Even if you have to, go out in a blaze of glory.
I know. I'm actually plotting my demise.
I just don't get to the place where you say like it's, I don't give enough. Go the opposite.
Yeah, I'm working on that. Thank you. I'm working on that. And you don't settle for doing a project that meets your needs, but then makes you feel like you didn't do what your heart was telling you to do.
My mom said the same thing. My mom and I had a long talk today, and
yeah,
I know I actually came on here feeling much more resolved than I was, but I think it's really important. I think it's really important for people to acknowledge the bad days and the struggles.
Yeah, good point. Absolutely.
Has been Subject to Change, a sustainability podcast.
You're at the point you have outgrown them.
They have outshrunk me.
Or that. Both things can be true.
Both things can be true.
Thanks once again for joining us. This has been Jodi Smits-Anderson and Lauren Stanek with Subject to Change.